I do believe that Bitcoin is going to crest the six-figure mark. It's going to be over $100,000 at some point later this year. That's my belief. And so what I believe is that over the course of this year and next, we're going to see a lot of institutional investors get their head around this and start establishing 1%, 2%, 3% positions in Bitcoin. The only caveat to that is if we do run into a hard downturn economically here, which I believe is a distinct possibility. It's a distinct possibility that we have some sort of event here where you have a washout of some sort of financial or institution that wipes out and takes down a number of institutions with it, or threatens to in an act of contagion. And in that case, I see us having a kind of a steep drop off and then a V recovery, because again, go back to the other first principle, is the treasury market must stay liquid, and they will print to make sure it does. So if it does dip down from here and we have a sharp drawdown, I believe that would be a buying opportunity, because I do believe that the Fed and the Treasury will come back to the rescue and print more money, and they'll print more than they ever have before in multiples of it, because they have to keep this thing liquid. So that's the only caveat, and that's the only question. And how long that takes, when that happens, anybody's guess. And I do believe there will be volatility in Bitcoin, but I believe that volatility will continue on the upside. And that's why I'm so excited about the opportunities ahead.
James Lavish, a distinguished macro analyst and former hedge fund manager, recently shared his Bitcoin forecast 2024. With growing institutional adoption driven by the successful launch of spot Bitcoin ETFs, Lavish predicts that as institutions recognize the value of Bitcoin, they will begin allocating more of their portfolio to it, establishing 1%, 2%, or even 3% positions in Bitcoin through the ETFs. This, in turn, would push Bitcoin's price upwards to incredibly high levels. Lavish foresees Bitcoin hitting six figures within this year. The only thing that he says would get in the way of this bullish possibility would be the economic struggles of traditional finance itself. In an extreme financial crisis, the market could collapse, leading to a crash in asset values, including Bitcoin. Nevertheless, Lavish sees that event as another great opportunity to invest in Bitcoin, as he believes that a price recovery for this specific crypto asset is sure to happen afterward. To Lavish and many other expert investors, Bitcoin is a hedge against all economic uncertainty. Let us now take a look at some clips of the discussion where James Lavish shares his latest insight regarding the current struggles of the macroeconomy and the massive potential of Bitcoin for continued growth. As you watch, we encourage you to take a moment to show support. Give the video a thumbs up, share it with your circle, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more insightful content. Thanks and enjoy.
The money printing that we're talking about printing money with QE basically in times of distress. And when you see a real fast expansion of the money supply. And what's really important about that is that that's what adds to inflation. We've seen it. We've seen that how it exacerbates inflation. That's what we're talking about here. The Fed goes out and they commission banks as intermediaries to go and buy bonds in the market for them, both treasuries and mortgage-backed securities. And they'll go and do that. And then the Fed just kind of presses a button and enters reserves on their balance sheet to pay for them. So then they can pass that through. And it's just money entering the system that wasn't there prior. And so it expands the money supply. You can see the expansion of the balance sheet of the Fed and the expansion of the money supply kind of go lockstep. And then there's further on, there is, and we didn't talk about inflation in this thread, it was just about the money printing, but you can see a delayed effect where inflation starts to hit after the expansion of the money supply. So that's what's so important to understand about it. And so they basically can just print money. And they've said this before. They've said it on 60 Minutes. They've said, we print money. That's what we do. So we'll never default. Why won't we default? Because we print money. No sovereign that issues debt in its own currency would ever default. Why? Because they can just print money and buy their own bonds. Look at what Japan is doing. They're doing the exact same thing. They've been doing it for years. And so they're running into issues with it, But that is exactly what's happening. And so that's what we have to, that's what we have ahead of us. So I think we have continued perpetual structural high inflation. And the reason we have that is because we must have liquidity in the treasury markets. And that means that we must maintain liquidity across the economy and across the markets in order to maintain that liquidity in the treasury markets, because we're not going to cut expenses. We're already spending more than we are legally bound to with mandatory expenses and with long-term contracts with the defense contractors, and then just the interest on our debt. Interest on our debt is $1.1 trillion right now.
Stupid.
It's ridiculous. I mean, you don't have to be a math genius to see that that's not sustainable. Like, we have to do something. And so that's kind of where we're at. And that's why the money is printed to continue, because when we have these times of shock, we cannot have the treasury market act dysfunctional. Like, it has to keep functioning with high liquidity. And that's why they enter the market and they buy the bonds in order to splash liquidity into the markets and make sure that the engine just keeps running.
As per Lavish, the Federal Reserve commissions banks to purchase bonds in the market, including U.S. Treasuries and mortgage-backed securities, using newly created reserves. This action injects money into the system, expanding the money supply. Lavish stresses that this expansion of the money supply leads to inflation and discusses the delayed effect where inflation starts to rise after the money supply expands. This is the problem that we are currently facing in our financial systems. Lavish believes that this problem needs to be addressed immediately to prevent a total collapse in the economy. Let's now return to James Lavish's discussion as he shares and explains his Bitcoin bullishness.
Using these ETFs, and some of them will, especially family offices and smaller and hedge funds, and perhaps smaller institutions, will get their own ability to buy Bitcoin without having to use the ETFs, which will just expand on that. And that will mean that they're getting great comfort in it and understanding around it, and getting comfortable with the risk of actually owning it themselves. So, but I think that that's going to continue. And so we're going to see this kind of trickle right now of institutions. We're going to turn that's going to turn into a kind of a stream and a flow, and then a steady flow. And just like a steady flow of a river of money that's coming into the space as these institutions get their head around it. Because like I said, they're going to take a 0.5% to 1% position. They'll stare at it on their sheets every single day until they decide whether they want to sell it completely or make it a full position of 2, 3, 4%. And that's where kind of we're headed. And so if you think about it in those terms, just go back to first principles. That just means that more money is coming into the space, that Bitcoin's price should rise accordingly. And to whatever multiplier you want to put on it, we've all talked about multipliers, but whatever you want to put on it because of the liquidity that's there now, I do believe that Bitcoin is going to crest the six-figure mark. It's going to be over $100,000 at some point later this year. That's my belief. The only caveat to that is if we do run into a hard downturn economically here.
Considering Lavish's insights, do you think it's wise to increase allocation to Bitcoin? Why or why not? We would love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Please don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated with the latest crypto and finance news. Also, if you would like to be notified whenever we upload a new video, please click the notification bell. Thank you so much for watching until the end, and we hope to see you in the next video.